So you're a landscape photographer or maybe a street photographer and you can't get into the city or you can't get out to the mountains, but you want to stay creative. So what do? Well, have you tried macro photography? Maybe you don't know where to start. So that's exactly what I'm gonna show you today. Before we start, to all you new subscribers, thank you. I'm super excited about the community that we're building here, and I look forward to meeting you online. And if you're new here, we do simple to understand photography and video tutorials, insights, and reviews. So hit that subscribe button, you won't be sorry. Okay, so macro photography. We're going to talk about the equipment you need, the settings you should use, how to nail focus, and at the end, I'm going to give you a few extra tips that you'll want to stick around for. So let's get started with the equipment. Well, the first obvious question is, do you need a macro lens? If you're not ready to dive into macro photography and spend a bunch of money on a new fancy lens, there is another option. They're called macro tubes. And what they do is they extend the distance between the sensor and your lens, and that creates a macro effect for your lens to operate with. And the great thing about macro tubes is you can use them on any lens you already have. It could be a wide angle, it could be a zoom, a prime, it doesn't matter. So they're a great way for you to start out and try macro photography and see if you like it first. Now, if you want to try the macro tubes, I would personally suggest that you start out with a focal length of a lens that is about 70 to 100 millimeters. That'll keep your distance from your subject a little bit further away, and that makes it easier to get close to subjects like insects, for instance, that are moving around and could get spooked if you get too close to them. Or of course, you could get a dedicated macro lens like this one, the Sony 90mm G macro, and this one is great because it's got the magnification ratios right on your focus ring. It also has in-lens stabilization, and something that's truly helpful with macro lenses, it's got a focus limiter switch, and this helps limit the lens trying to focus at a certain distance, so it won't try to focus to infinity if you have it limited to just a few yards or even just a few feet. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into this lens, and I did a whole video reviewing it, so if you're interested in that, I'll link it in the description below and you can check it out. Now, a couple of great things about macro photography are, number one, you can often find great macro photography right near your house, whether it's plants or flowers or insects, and you can also control the light. So even if it's super bright and clear skies and it's terrible for landscape photography, that could be great for macro photography. Having your subject well lit is important, and you can often control the light because your subject is so small. So one of the things I like to do is bring a flash along, and I like to also use a bounce card or just a piece of white paper or a white card, and then just bounce the light and fill in some of the shadow side of the subject. One of the great things about flash is that the duration of the flash will actually freeze your subject and create a sharper image often. Most flashes and speed lights these days have a flash duration that can be as fast as 1/20,000th of a second. And this freezes your subject and helps you get a sharper image. Now, if you don't have a flash, you can always just use white foam board or white cardboard, or even just white pieces of paper to help redirect the light onto your image or your subject. And that brings us to the settings. Now, if you have a flash, shutter speed won't matter because you can determine how much light your image gets through the flash duration. Now, if I'm not carrying a flash, I like to keep my shutter speed at 1/250th of a second or faster in order to be sure that I can still capture a sharp image. Now, as for aperture, I like to keep it in the sweet spot of f8 to f11, just like any typical landscape. Now remember, in macro photography, your depth of field is razor thin because your subject is so small. So you very rarely want to have a wide open aperture of, say, 2.8 because it's going to be very difficult to get your subject in focus. And on that, how do you gain focus? Well, personally, I pretty much ignore autofocus for macro photography, and I always put it on manual focus. Then I just determine how far away from the subject I think I'm going to be in order to get the frame that I want, then just dial my focus to about where I think it should be and rock back and forth slowly until I see the subject come into focus and snap a few shots. A couple of other notes and tips are: number one, don't be afraid to use a tripod, especially if you have a static subject of a flower or a plant. And this can also help you get the camera into a difficult position, like super close to the ground or in a tight situation where you would otherwise have to put yourself to a really strange contorted position in front of people, which I've been known to do before myself. Also, if I'm staying mobile, I like to use my camera strap as a third point of contact around the back of my neck, like I've shown you on other videos. And this creates the ability for me to have tension on the camera and on the strap in order to stabilize the camera, especially if I can't get close to the viewfinder because of the subject or just because of where the subject is. And this third point of contact with the camera helps keep it steady. Like I said, something I talked about in my Sharp Landscapes video. And I'll also link that video below and you can check that out if you like. Another thing is I always wear a ball cap during macro photography because it helps me see the LCD screen in super sunny situations if I can't get my eye up to the viewfinder. Oh, another great idea is to bring along a polarizer. Now these help enrich the colors of the plants and flowers, and they can also eliminate glare if you find some subjects with water on them. And now that you have a polarizer, another trick I like to use is bring a spray bottle along to create raindrops on your subjects. And this can also help make the colors of the plants and flowers that you're photographing rich and deeper. So tell me, have you done any macro photography? And if so, do you have any tips or tricks to share with our community? If so, put it in the comments below. I'd really like to know what you do out there. Oh, and if you are in a Sony system and you're interested in that 90mm G macro lens, I'll put a link to the review I did on that in the description below and you can check that out. Okay, I hope that this helped. And if you feel like it did, please hit that like button, as that really does help. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell to stay in the loop around here, and I'll see you in the next video.